I got this Celsius kicking in on me. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's another amazing episode of the world famous Keepin It Rio podcast. I do believe it is now ranked number 2 in the world in my own personal rankings. Still chasing Joe Rogan, but I'm almost up on him now. And today's guest, I think, might be the one that puts me over the threshold. So sorry, Joe, taking over number 1 today because I have gone out and got myself a superstar. As you can see, this man is a huge fan of Beetlejuice as well, so you can't go wrong with that. I would like to take one moment, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome our guest to the show. He is the one and only Elijah Muhm. Elijah is the host of the Trollz podcast. He's also a roofing professional. So this is going to be pretty fun because we're not going to talk about roofing hardly at all. So, Elijah, welcome to Keepin It Rio, my friend. How's it going?
It is going great, man. I'm excited to be on here. Did my research, followed a little bit of episodes, so I'm pumped, man. I'm ready to go. And yeah, I hope we don't talk about roofing too much. I know that we both are involved in the roofing industry, but you know, just like anybody else would think on a podcast, it's pretty boring.
Yeah, exactly. We told a couple stories before we went live here, and it is indeed boring. So we're going to keep it nice and Rio tonight. We're going to have a good old time. Why don't we just start by kicking it off with the world famous question that I love to ask everybody. Elijah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend? And then we will just flow with it from there.
All right. Well, I guess we are going to talk about a little bit of roofing. So yeah, I have a podcast that we just recently started, the Roof Trollz. You could find us anywhere podcasts are played, our Facebook. Yeah, great time hosting the podcast on Roof Trollz. I have another couple hosts with me, Angelo, Saya, and Michael Armalis. Give them shout outs, my partners. I also own Roman's Roofing with a group of guys. We've all been in business now for about 2 years over here. I've been in the storm restoration industry since 2016, the end of 2016. Just a fun environment, fun atmosphere to be in. And just the evolution of it all is just great, man. And then getting in here, and then once you're in the industry, you recognize a couple things that are going on. So I'm just here to have a little bit of fun. I recognized immediately when I got in here that everybody was having fun. So my message is very loud and clear everywhere that I'm at, is just promoting having a good time, showing everybody that, you know, entrepreneurism can be daunting, but it's a great time as well. So I just like to get out there and have fun, showcase it, and just get some laughs, man. Life's too short, you know, let's party.
I agree 100%. And I just told you, you know, I got myself wound up here with a little bit of liquid energy. This is my 3rd can of Celsius I've had today. And I got to share a quick story about this because it's terrible. This is my way of being financially responsible. I go to the 7-Eleven store down the street from my house here, and they've got these giant freaking Celsius, which is like way bigger than the normal one, but they're on sale. Buy one, get one free. So to me, in my mind, I'm realizing that I'm actually being fiscally responsible. I'm making a good financial investment because I'm only paying for one when I'm actually getting 2. But the problem with that is I drink the damn things as soon as I get them, and then I'm all wound up on my podcast. So forgive me if I start shaking and going into convulsions. It's all because of Celsius, and I wouldn't want it any other way. So that's the disclaimer.
Are you a coffee drinker too, or just energy drinks?
I love coffee.
Bro, first off, I love coffee. I get so excited for coffee that I'm too wound up sometimes going to sleep, knowing that I got a cup of coffee waiting for me in the morning. And I just bought this coffee machine that you can grind your own beans, like real beans, into a single cup. So I don't have to be bothered by the Starbucks and all that stuff. And it's downstairs. Man, it's awesome, dude. You just get 2 scoops of like real beans. So you go out of your way to buy really nice coffee. Because if you're a coffee drinker, you know the difference between shit and real coffee. It's like the Pulp Fiction scene. But you go out and you get great coffee, and you get to make 1 cup with like actual ground down beans. And it's just, dude, it's so good. It is amazing. But what made me think about the coffee thing was, do you know Mike Armalis, my partner?
I do not.
Oh man, when we go down to IRE, we're going to chop it up. But so Mike is 52 years old, and we're out in Orlando. We're waiting to go to RoofCon, and he's making what I think is a cup of coffee. This is like 7:30 in the morning, keep in mind. we're down. I hear him moving around at the Airbnb. I go down there. I'm like, hey, Mike, what's going on? You making coffee? And dude, he's shooting pre-workout at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And then he's doing it again. He'll do it again at like 10, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And yeah, dude, it's just, that's wild, bro. If I have 2 cups of coffee, I'm ready to do cartwheels down the street. I don't know how people intake that much. Like that much energy is wild.
I feel like I'm immune to it at 47 or 46. My bad. I'll probably be 47 when this comes out, unfortunately. But
what are you?
I'm
tomorrow?
46 right now. No, it's this is going to come out in a couple weeks. So I got a birthday coming up soon. But yeah, I've had an addiction for quite a while, and it's energy drinks. I'm not going to lie. Probably about 20 years plus. I have at least one every morning. And like I said, now that I'm being financially responsible, I've kind of kicked it up a little bit. So not a good thing. I might have to change that, but I think I'm immune to it. I can drink 5 or 6 cups of coffee, drink a couple of these bad boys, go out, sell some roofs, have some fun, do some podcasts, and I will sleep like a baby tonight, I can assure you. So
that's awesome.
All good.
Yeah, I used to drink 2-3 energy drinks a day, but no, not anymore, man. Because with the coffee and everything, I'm already a high functioning energy person to begin with, so I got a really out there personality. So when I'm jacked up on stuff too, it's just like I'm just too raw for people. Sometimes it's too aggressive, so I have to maintain it, mellow it.
I definitely understand. I live that lifestyle on a daily basis myself. So I get that. I am a little bit intrigued though about this coffee maker. Let me ask you this. What's the best coffee you've ever gotten for this wonderful machine, this mechanical thing of beauty that you've purchased that's allowing you to crush up individual beans right there on site? What's the best beans you've ever had?
So I don't know the name of the brand, but my buddy, who I'm really good friends with, he is actually marrying a woman that lives in the Philippines. So like they're in the process of doing that whole thing. So he went out there and he got me actual coffee beans from out there that were grown like literally. He went and pulled them, with the people there and put them in the bags and bagged it all up and stuff like right there on the spot out of the soil, and then brought it over here because you can bring up to like 8 pounds, I guess, from that area into the United States. So I obtained 2 bags like this size of them. And yeah, man, it was the real deal. That was actually what inspired me to go out and start looking for other coffee beans, because when I first got it, I was at a couple local joints by me, not Starbucks, like Fluid Coffee here in Valparaiso, Indiana, just like a couple little micro coffee places. And I'm like testing it out. And then I had some at Sam's Club. I had some at Myers, and I'm like going around and doing all these coffee beans. But then he gave me those, and dude, it was like a whole new world, just a unbelievable cup of coffee. And that lasted me, because you only do 2 tablespoons. So that lasted me quite a bit. And I still have not had coffee that compares to that and at all. I bought some off of Amazon, some Jamaican blue coffee beans that you freeze. You don't leave them at room temperature. So like those were great, but they don't even hold a torch to those Philippine ones, man. Those were incredible.
I can appreciate that. My best coffee bean ever was in Kona, Hawaii. I literally did the same thing, went out into the field and got coffee beans, and they were, you could chew on them. And I'll tell you what, much like anything, if you chew on it, you get the reaction much quicker. And I got them dipped in chocolate, so I didn't realize that, I ate a nice big old bag, and I ended up doing a cliff dive that day, which I had never anticipated in my entire life. So here's to good coffee and caffeine addiction and just having fun with it. So,
oh man, 100%. And they sell Kona in the stores, but I always get skeptical about those pre-packed bags, because who knows where that shit's really from? It's like bottled water. Like who knows where you actually got that from?
Exactly. It's like Kona, Illinois. And it's like, dude, come on now. I didn't read the small print. I used to get spring water in Ohio, and then I read the bottom of the barrel where the label is as to what it was. And it was like not really a spring. It was more of like a lake. And I stopped drinking spring water that day because I realized they can get tap water and call it whatever they want. And spring could have just been a picture of a little spring as well. So yeah, it's all about the way that they market this stuff. But yes, huge fan of coffee. That's a great way to start our episode here of Keepin' It Rio. I do want to ask a little bit. Now, I said we weren't going to talk about roofing, but you've got the roofing business over here. You've been doing it for a couple years with your buddies. Tell me a little bit about what's going on with Roman's Roofing, how Roman's Roofing came about, and what you guys are doing over there.
All right. So I was at a corporate company for a little bit and working at a national, kind of like a nationally recognized company. And things didn't really pan out. You know, I didn't really like the corporate setting. I was kind of like capped off at what I could and could not do, especially when it came to marketing, which I'm big on. So we were exiting out of there, and there was a group of us. I've had the same core with me for years. So like 5 or 6 guys been with me for about 5 or 6 years each, the sales reps. So I was their team lead at multiple other spots before we decided to go do something on our own. So I had met with a couple companies, and I just didn't really like where it was at, because I was kind of flirting with the idea of going out and doing something on my own. But then I was also like, well, you know, I'm really comfortable as a sales rep. I'm making good money. I'm not really like, there's no stress on me, you know. I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm having fun, making cash. I'm working with my boys. Like, this is a win. But I was like, but at the same time, I'm helping other people achieve their goals, their bigger goals. And although I'm making good money, I have goals that I want to achieve as well. So I was like, well, I need to go start something on my own. It was me and Mike Armalis that I'd mentioned, and we started meeting with people, and we were sitting down with them to see what the offers were like out there, see what we could do. And when we didn't come across any that we really wanted to, we were like, well, you know what? We're kind of like stuck. Like, we're just gonna have to start this up on our own. Let's go get our GC. Let's go get our roofing license. Let's do the whole shebang. Let's start it up ground level. So we were prepared to do that. We had another gentleman, Sean, that was with us, and we're like, all right, we're gonna do this on our own. So about a week before we started planning to do all that, my buddy Angelo, who was working here with Jeff Semko, he's a local attorney, they own Roman's Roofing together. And I've known Angelo for 24 years. He's a really good friend of mine. So Angelo had been begging me to come over there to begin with. Hey, man, you should come over here and work here. This guy, Jeff, he's doing big things. We have like a good system here. We have a good structure, but we kind of lack the sales. Like, we don't have enough sales guys. We kind of lack the numbers. And I'm like, bro, I really don't want to work for anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of like it deflated me with all the rules that I had to follow at a corporate level. And I'm just like, dude, this is just not for me, man. I'm not an animal that can be contained, you know, like, I need to get out there and be wild. And I'm like, I don't know, dude, I think I'm just going to go start my own thing. He's like, well, we were going to a Cubs game. He convinced me at the Cubs game to sit down with him. He's like, just go have a meeting. You know, what is it going to hurt to have a meeting? And he's right. You know, anytime in life that somebody gives you an opportunity to sit down, you should always sit at that table regardless, because it's best to hear people out. So I get in here, and turns out Roman's Roofing was a small, like, mom and pop operation. Jeff Semko was an attorney that had represented multiple local roofers. And basically, he saw how much money was in roofing. And more importantly, he saw how uneducated a lot of the roofing owners are. And he was like, there's no way that I went to school and all this. You guys are making this type of money. Let me get in on this. So he started his own thing, and he had like a really good brand, because it was like a mom and pop feel to it. And Roman is actually Jeff Semko's son. So that's why it's Romans with apostrophe S. So it's his son. So he started it. So I can respect that as a father too. Like, hey, all right, cool, man. This is like got a really good feel to it. So we're talking to him, and I'm like, man, we got a sales team, and we're going to have to jump through all these hoops and flames to get these licenses and shit. You've already got the licenses in place. You just can't sell because you don't know how to do that. So why don't we just see what this looks like? So then we got together, and we're like, man, it was like a perfect fit, and we hit the ground running. I'm talking guns blazing. So they did about 700,000 was their biggest year prior to 2 years ago. We come over here 2 years ago, and we start in May. By May to December, we did 7 million. So my guys are coming in. Yeah, we're feeling good, man, feeling hot. And I'm like, dude, this is great. We're starting to make a little bit of money here. What can we do to take it to this next level? And then, as things would always work out, you know, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So we ended up getting really lucky that a building down the street opened up for us. So we bought a commercial building, and we renovated the entire bottom that we're in now, staffed up a sales team. We flew Deshaun Bryant out here to teach with the guys. So then we went from 7 million into last year, the full year, at 14 million. So now we're at 14 million. So I just staffed up 10 guys I'm bringing in here. And now I got John Cena coming out here in May. I got Deshaun coming out here. And we're just, man, we're having so much fun. We started the podcast. We hired a marketing team. And now it's it's an amazing thing. They feel like we've been together forever, even though we've only been together for 2 years. All of us have either worked together outside of Jeff. We've all either worked together side by side or under, because Mike Armalis was actually my first boss in this industry. When I came into roofing sales, I worked at Mid-America in 2017 to 2019, and that was my boss, who's now my partner. So it's just an extremely awesome story, and it just folded so well together.
Yeah, and I love those stories. And I had a sort of an idea that that's where you were going to go with it, because I did do a little tiny bit of research. And I love that, because to me, it's like, you know, like you say, you go into a smaller deal. It's not as corporate as what you're used to. And I was in the same situation. I worked for a great roofing company over in College Station, Texas for 7 years, was a good sales rep. I was having a great life. And then one day it was just like, you know what? I think I need to do something else. I need to do something more. There's more for me to conquer in this world. And I ended up moving to Indianapolis, of all places, right down the street from you. And I was working there for a couple months, and I remembered exactly why I left Ohio. It was because the freaking weather sucks. And I was in Indy. It was super cold. I had some partners over here in East Texas, and we ended up buying this Rio Blanco company down here in San Antonio. It was out of business. It was just sitting here. Everything was in storage. I'd never been to San Antonio before in my entire life. So, yeah, let's do that. That sounds awesome. You guys want to give me an opportunity to go do that? Okay. Came down here in 2019. We built it up. It was doing really well. Then we hit some roadblocks and things kind of went a little south on us. We ended up shutting the company down in 2023 from February to December. And I went and did some other things. I went down to Florida, did some work with some conferences, personal development, stuff like that. A buddy of mine from Ohio, like you talk about full circle, he was in the distribution side where I started my career back in 1998. We partnered up. We got the company. Last year, I just kind of messed around a little bit and didn't really take it too seriously. But this year, we're building a team. I've got a couple new people on board. I don't think I'm trying to do 7 million this year, but we're gonna make it a nice, respectable operation and have a good time. And I'm like you. I had many offers to go back to work for other companies, and I just can't do it. At this stage of my life, at this stage of my career, it's like, you know what? I've gone too far to turn back, and this is either going to work wonderfully or it's going to fail miserably. And either way, I'm going to be 100% responsible. So I love that. I love the fact that you guys have a great a chemistry. Your core values are fun. Let's make this cool. Let's have a good time. And that's what this is all about, folks. Because as we've already discovered, roofing's kind of boring. It's the people that the homeowners and the commercial owners are ultimately buying into. I love the fact that your background is in sales, as is mine. So yeah, that's enough about roofing, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Roman's Roofing in Valparaiso, Indiana. If you need a roof, that's who you need to call right there. And enough said about that. So let's move on to the next subject. Let's talk a little bit about your podcast, The Roof Trollz. I always love having other podcast creators on the show because we've all got unique stories. And I would love to hear a little bit more about how the Roof Trollz came about, what the concept is. We'll kind of dive into all the important things like, you know, the equipment that you guys are using, the formats, all that stuff. But tell me a little bit about how the Roof Trollz podcast came about, what the idea was based off of.
Oh man. So I actually, we flirted with the idea of having a podcast like everybody over the course of the last 5 years. You know, Joe Rogan's made it so cool. Tim Dillon and those guys, Bert Kreischer and stuff, Kill Tony. They've just Chuck made Allen. It so, yeah, Chuck Allen. Yeah. Keeping it real. Let's go. So they've made it so fun to be on a podcast, and they've made it appear like anybody could do it, which by the way, guys, if you're listening right now, I'm here to tell you, not everybody can. There's some of you guys that got a podcast out there and you got a personality like fucking watching paint dry. It doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth. If you ain't fun to listen to, no one's going to listen to you. But the Roof Trollz, I was like, you know what? We got to come up with something it's not roofing. So I was like, I want to do this, but I want to make it fun. It has to be fun, because if it's not fun, what'll end up happening is, 1, it won't gain traction. 2, we'll lose interest in it. And then 3, people outside of our industry, I want them to listen to it. I mean, there are people doing amazing things in our industry. Don't get me wrong. Nothing wrong with Dimitri Lipinski and his approach. He wants to be the guy for the roofers, you know, like, and I love Dimitri. And Mike was on his show. He's a great guy. But I don't want to do that. I want to engage people so they actually understand kind of what the industry is, and not even just the industry, like entrepreneurism as a whole. Because a lot of us that are doing these things, we don't have college educations, and a lot of people are being told they have to have them. Like, you have to do this, or you have to do this a certain way. My whole career was, Elijah, if you don't tuck your shirt in, if you don't wear a suit, if you don't, if you don't look the part, no one's going to buy from you. Fuck that. That has nothing to do with anything. People are going to buy from me because I'm real. I'm just going to tell you how it is. And if you don't like it, then I'm going to sign your neighbor. That's literally what was always my approach to it. I don't care. You'll come back to me when I do quality work on the street. You just need to be shown. That's okay. Some people need more time to see that it's real. And that's always been my approach to it. So I'm like, well, how do I translate that to a podcast? Because that's difficult. So I told my partners, I'm like, well, it's all about the title. Like we can do whatever you want. You want to do roofing? That's fine. But we got to make it. People got to know that one of two things is going to happen on my podcast. Either we're going to have a shit ton of fun, or we're going to be controversial. So those are the only two things I'm going to accept on my podcast. So when they come on, you just know that that's what it is. And we've already kicked up some shit in the industry. I can't really go down those roads, but eventually I'd like to talk about them. But we've already created some controversy, and it's been fun, man. It just basically was an outreach to, hey, we want to shed some light on some people who are more deserving than other people might be, because full disclosure, I was snubbed a few times and I was kind of in my feelings a little bit about it. And I'm like, hey, why don't I make a podcast then? And if they don't want to give me the spotlight, I'll create my own spotlight. So then I was like, well, let's get it, man. Let's blow this up. Let's do it the right way. Let's get immediately on every platform along the way. And everybody was like, well, we don't know how to run a podcast. I'm like, shit, me neither. We don't know how to script it. Me either. So then let's not script it. Let's just get on and shoot the shit and let's see what happens. Some people are really cool. You'll learn a lot of cool things about people that you didn't know about. And then as I'm finding now that we're moving along with it, it's good to get guests you don't know shit about, because those are the best ones. Those are the ones that make it all worth doing. Also, the time frame. You do it right. A lot of people are out there trying to do 15-minute podcasts and 20-minute podcasts. If you know anything about podcasts, you can't even break down the exterior of your guest to make them comfortable enough to speak with you fluently until about 45 minutes in. That's when they let their guard down. That's when they open up and they're being real with you in the conversation. That's when the juicy stuff starts happening. So it sucks, man, having to try to find a way to kick that off with somebody right away, But yeah, Roof Trollz in a short was just created to shed light on people who deserve it and to have a lot of fun and show people that this industry is cool and that we're just normal dudes doing really cool things.
Yeah. And I love that mindset, because I'm the same way. And I tell people, I was joking about this the other day. I had a guest on just a couple of days ago. I guess it'll be last week's guest at this point. And he had a radio show and does a podcast that got 400 episodes. And it's just a couple of dudes drinking beers and just talking about whatever. And when Keepin It Rio started back in 2021, I guess it was 4 years ago coming up. It was originally not anything related to a podcast, but I had in my mind I was going to do a podcast, and this was my opportunity, right? And at the time, I was part of a larger organization. We had a social media consultant, and we had a Q2 or Q3, whatever it was. I don't even remember. I guess it was the third quarter of 2021, and everybody was going to go live as a group. It was my company and the partner company, and their managers were all going to go live and talk about what was happening in the roofing company and all this stuff. So I had Keepin It Rio in my mind for a while before that. I grew up in the 90s, and I was telling this dude the other day, huge fan of the old Howard Stern show. Not anymore, but back in the day, and you got Beetlejuice right there, so you know what I'm talking about. I was a huge fan, and back when I was a kid, it was on the E channel, and it was like they're sitting in this studio, and it was all dark, and they had these crazy lights going and just having a good time. And I was like, dude, that's what I'm going to do. So I started off, the first thing I did was bought an expensive microphone so I wouldn't give up. I went and bought a soundboard so I wouldn't give up on it. And it started with myself and 3 branch managers, and we would get on and just kind of like what you guys do. We talk about anything. Very seldom did we talk about roofing, but we would have guests on. We would have callers because it was always live at that point on Thursday evening. And it's kind of evolved over the course of the last 100 episodes to where it's now just me. Those guys have moved on and done other things in life. And, all good things must come to an end. But for me, it's always been that. And my favorite thing to do is to meet someone 5 seconds before we hit record or a minute beforehand and just be like, all right, I'm going to learn about you as we go. And some of the most amazing conversations and stories just come from that. And I'm telling you, Elijah, over the course of the 200 episodes, 206 now, I've had people that I've never met before that I may never meet again tell me some of the craziest shit that I've ever heard. And it's amazing. I've had like people on here talking about cheating on their wives, cheating on their husbands,
Jesus,
giving the details. And it's like, what the hell, dude? Like I wasn't expecting that. I had a stand-up comedian that was talking about how he knew Tupac and he fought Muhammad Ali one time and just all kinds of craziness. And it's like, you know what? This is pretty cool. And I always fancy myself to be relatively interesting, at least in my own mind. And I also do realize that nobody can cancel this because, like you said, we've created our own opportunity here. So it's only going to get canceled when I get sick of it. But you're spot on about just going in, shooting the shit, having a good time, talking about whatever we can and making it fun. So let me ask you a little bit about the setup of the podcast. You guys make the idea. Let's rock and roll with it. What do you do to get started with the Roof Trollz as far as a place to record, audio equipment? Everybody's got a different story. I had one guy that started with a cell phone. I had one guy that started with a complete freaking setup. What was your guys' experience like getting started?
So usually when we go into something, especially at Roman's Roofing, we go into it full guns blazing. So when I talked about it, getting the podcast, we kind of like made it clear to everybody, me and Mike and everybody were like, hey man, we're going to do this shit. We're going to do it right. It's got to be, we're taking the time out to film this every other week. We're going to do this, we're putting an episode out a week. It needs to be of high quality. So we actually went and hired a team. Do you mind if I say their name? Or
Absolutely not. Okay. Go for it.
So Spark Raw Media with Revens Lee and her husband Will. They're amazing people, but we were referred to them by a company that we're friends with in the Chicagoland area. And when we got with Revens, we realized that they could make what I had in my mind come to life. So we were in a really good position. Like I said, we were coming off a better year than we anticipated having. So we had a little bit of bread to throw around. So we went ahead and just started up in August. And we bought a bunch of equipment. I'll be honest with you, man, I'm the wrong person to talk to about the equipment stuff, but we bought some stands. So it started with one camera and a couple table mics, like one table mic. And it was a round table that we were in. The first 3 episodes are actually on YouTube. You can see them. So it's just a round table that like wasn't even, bro. Like if you leaned on it, it just like moved. And it was just 3 guys chopping it up. And it was 1 camera, 2 cameras. And I'm like, fuck, man, this isn't going to do it. So I showed them the Bert Kreischer podcast that I really enjoy, the 2 Bear in a Cave. And I was like, I really like this setup. I like how these guys have this. It looks comfortable. Looks like everybody's just shooting the shit. What do we got to do to get this? So then we bought a bunch of stands, like really good stands. We bought some Shure microphones, some headphones. It was all nice equipment. We splurged for a couple of them. I wish I could tell you exactly what they are, but I can't. Full disclosure, I can't. But they managed it and they edited it for us. So we got this set up, and even before this setup too, which I didn't even bring up this. So when I came up with the concept and like, it's going to be Roof Trollz, it had to be fun. So the first thing I was like, you know what, I could do some cool intro music or whatever, but I was like, but really, if we want to brand this the right way, like if we really want to be a reflection of us, we got to go hard, man. So we actually paid an artist to make our song for us, the Roof Trollz song. So that single is on Apple Music and all that stuff, like wherever you can find music, it's on there too, called the Roof Trollz by Roos by Don. But we bought the song from him. He recorded it, and I originally just wanted a melody, but for the same price, it was going to be a full song. So I'm like, well, hell, why not do a full song? Maybe like a couple of years down the road, we can go do a music video or something fun. He's in Atlanta. I know I'd love to go out there and have some fun. So maybe we'll do that later. But so now we have the intro and we have this little setup. So we went and bought stands, got better mics, got headsets, and then invested in 2 more cameras. So now I got 4 cameras, 4 stands, 4 mics, 4 headsets. And we moved the podcast from that back room that we were in up to the front of the lobby here in the office. And I got a nice little setup with the couches and the chairs. So now we just have everything there. But upstairs, we're in a 9,000 square foot building. Upstairs is being renovated. When it's done, which I anticipate hopefully August or September, but when it is done, I will have my own podcast room, of which then we will design it and make it the way we want it to. And then it's going to be really nice.
Yeah, game on. I love that. And I love the evolution. You know, mine has been completely changed. I was watching episode 1 the other day, and it was like, wow, that was kind of lousy. It kind of sucked. My audio equipment was garbage. I went out, got a good microphone, and really that's all you need. I'm talking to you on a webcam that I paid $60 for.
Yep.
And it looks all right. I got a good internet connection. I think that's the most important thing if you're doing it like this. I love the in-person, the in-studio concept. One day I think I'm going to evolve into that. But for right now, I'm having a great time doing it like this. This is 206 episodes deep. I'm the same way. I'm very limited technically, but I found StreamYard is simple. You hit a couple buttons and it does most of the work for you. So outside of some of those little faux pas that you have along the way where the microphone quits working or the live guest just disappears, so far it's been pretty good. So I really like that. And I know you guys have been doing it for a relatively short period of time, but some damn good conversations. I watched a little bit of them. Like you say, not roof related stuff. We're saving the world and solving the major problems in life. Tell me a little bit about your favorite episode that you guys have done to date and maybe the funniest story. And then, you know, we'll just kind of take that and say, all right, we're done with business. Now it's time to talk personal.
So we got some really good stories that we have not released yet. Some of our guests, like my brother was on a podcast. A couple other guys have. So in the beginning, we didn't want to get the image that it's just all laughing and joking around, because then no one's going to, you know, some people won't find that interesting. It's got to be both. You got to find a happy medium and make it engaging. But there are some badass stories that we got coming. So just know that it's going to get a lot funnier. I would say my favorite episode. So it really is a double-ended question. Like, are you asking my favorite episode, like my favorite as a podcast host? Are you asking my favorite episode is like, which one was the funniest and like best time that we had?
There's no wrong answer. Whichever one you decide to interpret it as, go with that.
Well, I'll tell you both of them then. So my favorite episode actually just came out today. So we went to Minnesota and we filmed with Reed Asher, who is Build Strong sales manager. And I did not know Reed. Reed was not a guest that I set up on my podcast, not because I don't like Reed, but I didn't know Reed like that. Me and him, we had a couple casual conversations, and I went into that completely blind. And this is probably why it's one of my favorite episodes. I went into that and I'm like, hey man, you know what? We're going to run this. We're going to shoot it. Like, I don't know what we're going to talk about because I don't know the guy, but fuck it. Let's go. So we go into this podcast and dude, I was so blown away, dude, by just genuinely a good dude. Like, I don't know anybody in the world that met this guy. There's no way they'd say something bad about him, man. He was just like everything you want your sales manager to be. There is literally no price point on Reed Asher. If I'm being honest with you, I don't know what he would cost to get as a sales manager, but I got my checkbook ready when he's ready, you know, like that's just, you know, and he's with such great guys with Tony Flatham and them over there. And he's a lifer, man. He ain't going anywhere. And he really laid out like what it's like to work with and for somebody who genuinely cares. Like, he wants to develop his team to be not only better salesmen, but better human beings, dude. That guy is like living. It's crazy, bro. Usually people don't really like knock me out like that, like where just like blow me away. But I remember leaving the podcast room and me and Angela were both looking at each other like, fuck. It was like we won the lottery. I'm like, dude, when that might be the most downloaded one. When people like listen to that, it's going to be, I even told Reed, I said, bro, that was one of my favorite ones I've ever shot. It might be my favorite. It's straight up like it took my breath away how good it was. And there was like a couple moments in there where you almost want to choke up because he's just being so real and so raw. And it was just, you finally got to see what the other side of the podcast looks like, because everybody sees Roof Trolls having a good laugh, and I'm all about that. But man, that aspect of it was just absolutely amazing. So as a host, that was my favorite. How I am, just me personally, I love to roast each other. That's something that we all take pride in. I believe that the Die Hard episode where we discussed Die Hard as a Christmas movie, which it is a Christmas movie. But when we discussed that, I really liked that episode because people saw that and laughed at it. You know, that was our most liked video on YouTube to date too. And all my buddies and stuff, they laugh about it. But I've been having that argument with Angelo for over 20 years. And I know how to trigger him because he's one of my good friends. So his reaction on there when he calls me fat and attacks me for it, like, that's genuine, bro. That is like really him. And you see him as he's unloading into me, he stops and you can see it in his eyes. And then he's like, no, you know what, you fat, like, I know what you're doing. Like, I basically like mind played him into, you know, baiting him to getting him to be triggered. And it was just really funny. I always find stuff like that funny. There's been some good ones though, bro. We've had some good guests on that just shoot the shit and say funny things, like Matt Polis, one of my reps, when he talked about the flat earth. I really enjoyed that because he actually believes that, and that's just funny to me. And then just having the guys on for a good laugh. My brother's very funny. I don't know, man. That question's so hard, dude, because even though there's been like only a certain amount, it's just been, we always laugh, bro. Like, I don't think I've ever had an episode where, you know what was great? And I'll give it away right now early, and it sucks to do it, but I don't care. When Michael Floyd, do you know who Michael Floyd is?
Somewhat.
Okay. So Michael Floyd was he was a wide receiver in the NFL, but before that, he was a Notre Dame great. He was just like a great wide receiver for us. So Mike Armalis is a fanboy. We all are. I'm a season ticket holder for Notre Dame, so like we love Notre Dame here. But
I'm sorry for what happened, Elijah. You see my Brutus Buckeye in the background, and
well, it's been a good podcast, man. So I'll just go ahead. But yeah, it sucks, dude. But yeah, we made it that far, and you know, private NIL deal. We got $20 million to spend, so hopefully we'll get some talent in there. But Armalis really loves anybody that Notre Dame related. So my main thing when we went out there was I was like, Mike, please don't be a fucking fanboy, dude. Don't get on here and like start riding him. You know what I'm saying? Like, be humble, dude. Like, relax. He's on our podcast. Like, it's gonna be fun, but like, let's not make this over the top. So what does he do? As soon as we're about to film with him, because I change my shirts and stuff when we do more than one in a day, because you know how it goes. So I'm doing that, and Mike's like, I got to go change, and I'm like, finally, guys, catch it on. Like, all right, cool, because he'll shoot 10 podcasts in the same damn shirt. So I'm like, all right, he comes out, dude. What does he come out in, bro? Comes out
jersey,
bro, a jersey, was a jersey or a sweatshirt, I can't remember, a hat, and Notre Dame shoes.
Nice.
Shoes. I said, Mike, I just had this conversation with you, bro. We're about to walk in there. So he goes in there. So me and Angelo had asked Mike Floyd to roast Armalis. Like, I really wanted to like roast him. So we get in there, and about towards the end of it, I'm just like, man, this fanboy. And then Michael Floyd was like, this guy's got more memorabilia than I do. And bro, we all just like lost it inside there. And it was just really funny because like this is somebody he was like really excited to see with, and then like he's busting his balls too. And it was just a good time, man. So I really enjoyed that moment too. But there's been a lot of them, dude. Roof Trolls is like, it's just great. Anytime I have Angelo Saya on there, are probably one of my favorite episodes, just because we can talk shit to each other, and you know, it's nothing but love between us. But for the audiences, those are probably the best ones for you guys to listen to, because it's just raw, and that's just who we are.
Yeah, I miss that, because I had that same dynamic with my guys when I had the 4-person panel. And I mean, we had characters that were playing off each other, and one of my co-hosts was always working to get me pissed off, and he did it every single week somehow. And I knew it was coming, but still it would just get me, and it'd be like, oh, you know, like he wouldn't clean off the camera on his computer. So it was all foggy for like months at a time. And it's like, dude, just take some Windex, just make it look better. And he never did. And I realized it was intentional, and it was all for the entertainment of the fans, but it's so much fun. And, you know, I've gotten to talk to so many different people. You talk about being a fanboy. I was a fan of Jeremy Mayfield, the NASCAR driver, for 25 years. And it was like the number one guest that I want on my show. I don't know if you're familiar with this story, but he got, raw dog from NASCAR, got banned, had all this crap go down. And I sort of became friends with him over the years because, we stuck together as fans and, screw NASCAR and all that stuff. And when I had Jeremy Mayfield on the podcast for maybe the first 5 minutes or so, I don't remember it because I was like, and then you kind of wake up and it's like, all right. And the same thing happened with Ryan Stewman. When Ryan Stewman was on my podcast, I didn't think Ryan Stewman would actually be on my podcast. It was kind of cool. And once you get going, he's telling stories about how he flipped his side by side because he was checking out a zebra and, all this crazy shit starts going on. And you get a little more calm and into the moment. And it ends up being some of the most amazing content ever. And I highly encourage anybody watching this to go back and check out all 205 previous episodes because each one of them has something of value. Some are funny, some are sad, some are enlightening, some are encouraging, and some are just straight up ridiculous.
What did you say about a zebra? Now, go back to that. I heard you say you flipped something for the zebra. What did you say?
So Ryan Stewman, the hardcore closer, he came on the show probably about 6 months ago. And I've been following this dude for years. I had all of his books, and I just was on his Facebook group, and I was like, hey, bro, why don't you come on my podcast? So he did. And he was telling a story about how he broke his neck. This has been like 3, 4, 5 years ago, something like that. He broke his neck. And I'm asking him, dude, how'd you break your neck? Tell me a little bit about it. He was on some farm with a bunch of rich people. And the intro to the reel is amazing. He's like, I look over and I see this fucking zebra, and he turns his head. And as he turns his head, the side-by-side kind of goes with him. And one of the wheels got cocked sideways and it flipped. And he ended up, hurting himself. He had to drag himself and his buddy back to the thing. But I promise that's the first time that anybody's ever had a zebra story on a podcast. I've done a podcast live from a video game themed home in Orlando one time. I believe I'm the only podcast that's ever had the host go down a water slide live on the air. We did the World Skee Ball Championships. One time, Tim Brown was on my show at 3:00 in the morning live from his rooftop. And that was one of the most enlightening ones of all time, too, because at that point, Tim had been on his roof for like 20 hours or something. And he was on the downward slope of his 24 hours on the roof. And I caught him at 3 a.m. when he was just, perfectly ripe. He had been sleep deprived. He's cold. He was Tim Brown in all of his magnificence for that episode. And we covered some crazy stuff. I think Tim had mentioned that he was taken off the roof by a gang of squirrels. They took him to a tree, presented him to a raccoon. The raccoon completely rejected him because he thought Tim was competition. Took him back to the roof, and all of this happened during this 24-hour period. So it's amazing some of the things that can be told and some of the stories that can come from just random conversations, because I certainly didn't anticipate having squirrels and zebras and raccoons and all these different things. But
shout out Tim Brown too. He was so hospitable, man, that setting that whole thing up over there was so awesome for us, dude. So shout out to that guy. I don't even really know him that well. I hope too soon. He was just his crew. They got a great office. They got a great crew there. So yeah, shout out to him. That's awesome. I thought you were going to say something roof related, because I smashed a car one time when I first I started off as a canvasser in this industry, and back in the end of 2016, and I had a Chrysler Pacifica when I got in this, dude. I never made any money prior to this, dude. 30 grand was like my cap when I got in this industry, and it's been amazing. It changed my life. But I was so addicted in the beginning, so I'm driving around, cruising the streets, looking at roofs, fucking turn a corner and hit a pole and just total my Chrysler Pacifica. Hit it on the airbag, came out, hit it on the front corner, just gone. And I had no money at the time, and it was because I was looking at a roof. It was really funny. It sucked, but now I can laugh at it, but not then.
Yeah, at the moment it's terrible, but now you've kind of evolved to the point where I feel like I'm doing better if I'm looking up and not directly in front of where I'm driving. And I almost got in a wreck today doing the same thing. I was looking at a roof on an apartment complex, and I thought, damn, that thing's juicy, looking kind of prime. And the guy in front of me slammed on his brakes, and I damn near got into a wreck, but I didn't. And that's all that really matters at the end of the day. So that's something about roofing that anybody that's not in the industry doesn't understand, but anybody that's in it knows. Most of the time, we're looking up rather than straight forward. And
I used to get a lot of shit from my fiance, but my fiance is in the industry now. She works for another company, a public adjusting company, but she gets it now. We're in the car and I'm looking at roofs and stuff like that. She's looking at roofs. She's like, look at that one. Look at that arc over there. Look at that 3-tab. And I'm like, dude, I told you. I told her, I said, this is an addicting industry and just there's no way out of it. Once you're in it, if you're any good at it, you're done. That's it. Welcome to the industry you'll work in for the rest of your life. You're just never going to leave it.
Nope. I've tried about 50 different times. And, you know, I told the story that the day I got into the industry, I had no idea that I was getting into the roofing industry. And that was 27 years ago. I was having a bad day at work. I used to load drywall into commercial buildings with a crane.
Fuck.
And that job was pretty lousy. I'm not going to lie. It was a young man's sport. And I was pissed off about something that happened at work that day. I don't even remember what it was, but I'm thankful that it happened because it put me into a different world. And I was just driving by a roofing supply company and I saw they were looking for a CDL driver. I pulled in and I've never left. I've tried many times. And with that, in our industry, in the 27 years, I've got to meet so many different people. I've been all over the country. I've been all over the world. And I learn different things from different people. I was a driver for 12 years. I used to roof load houses for 12 years. That's probably the longest tenured roof loading person in the history of the industry. And if anybody has longer tenure than me, I bow to you because it's pretty damn tough. I can't raise my right arm on some days because of the years of lifting shingle bundles by hand and throwing them up. But I did that. I ended up randomly one time moving to North Carolina and opening a roofing supply company from scratch. Met the dude that I was teaming up with at the door the day that we opened, which was probably not the greatest move, but you know, I learned a lot. I did that for 3 years. Randomly, I had a bad day at that office and I ended up walking out, which I was the branch manager at the time. It was kind of weird. A lot of people thought I owned the company. Walked out, ended up in Texas. And the way that I got to Texas was through I was at a Chinese restaurant or some kind of a buffet. And I ran into a dude that I was wearing a Certainty shirt at the time. We struck up a conversation. Next thing you know, I'm going back to Charlotte, packing up my stuff, moving all the way to Texas to start selling roofs for a guy that I don't even know. And I ended up doing that for 7 years. After the 7, like I told you, I end up here in San Antonio doing my own deal now, but it's been amazing. And throughout the course of time, I've evolved. I've gotten to do consultations with contractors all over the United States. I get people that call me all the time. I feel like I'm not old, but I guess I am because I have these guys calling me and I refer to them as kids now. And I realize I've been doing roofing longer than some of these dudes have been alive. And I guess I'm resigned to the fact this is what I'm going to be. And I'm all right with it. It's a lot of fun. I love dealing with homeowners. I love when the homeowners tell me something like, you know, I saw your podcast episode with so-and-so on it. Because you know you're doing something, you're doing something cool and it's not roofing. And I've made sure to not be a roofing podcast for that very reason. I've sold deals to people because I've sent reels of a comedian or a magician doing a magic trick, and it's like, hey, did this guy make you disappear? I haven't heard from you in a couple of days. And they get back to you and it's like, oh, ha 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 ha. You end up doing the deal. And I think that's where people are kind of misinformed about these podcasts is a lot of people think we're doing it to be clout chasers. To be honest, I could care less if anybody watches. I get to talk to some of the most amazing human beings on the planet. I've talked to circus clowns. I've talked to people in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I've talked to hot sauce chefs, professional wrestlers, professional bare knuckle fighters that own roofing companies, entrepreneurs, the top people in our industry. But I don't really care. That's not the reason why I'm doing it. I don't need people to say, oh my God, can I get your autograph? Now, I have sent an autograph one time. Troy Anderson, the roof man out of Nashville, nice. Tennessee. I sent him an autograph bar of soap a couple years ago, and I believe he's still got it on the shelf. But that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it for fun. But I do want to ask you this before I get into your personal stuff a little bit more. Tell me a little bit about the experience you've had with people outside of the industry, maybe catching on to your podcast, maybe somebody sees you out in public and says, oh my God, it's Elijah. Do you have anything like that going on? And tell me a little bit how that makes you feel, because it's never the goal, but when it does happen, it's like, man, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, man. So actually everything that's been happening, so it's really funny because somebody just the other day told me, they're like, what is the goal here? You're just trying to be rich and famous? And I'm like, well, the hell did I say I wanted to be famous? Like,
right. Or rich.
Yeah. Well, I'll be rich, but not off the podcast, but I don't mind being rich. But yeah, I'm not trying to be famous or anything. So when we started filming it, I'd say it was like a couple months into it. It started gaining a little bit of traction in the beginning because you know how it goes. When you first started, it's all your network. Everybody who's on your Facebook page starts gaining a little interest. You get a little traction here and there. And we're like, hey, dude, this is just it's going to take a couple years to blow this up, dude. It is. It's just going to, you know, you got to wait. You got to wait a little while. So I know it's a long man's game. I was at one of our sales reps' kid's birthday party. His name's Eddie. And he had been on a podcast a couple weeks prior to it. And some guy came up when I was getting a drink. I was in a cooler grabbing a beer, and some guy comes up and he goes, hey, man. He goes, were you on there with Eddie? And I said, I'm sorry, on where? And he goes, the YouTube, your podcast. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like, yeah, Roof Trollz. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, that's a funny shit. He's like, I watched your episode. He's like, and then before I knew it, I ended up watching the other two. He's like, dude, I was just sitting there on my couch watching you guys for 3 hours. And I was like, man, that's awesome. Like, man, my fiance was there to see that, to like witness that actually took place. I'm like, man, that's awesome. Like, that was really cool. But then at the CRCA, which we just went to out here in Chicago, we go to that event every year. So we go into CRCA, and some guy who worked at the company that I had left came up to me. I had my Roof Trollz hoodie on. He came up to me and he was like, hey, Elijah, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, hey, man, I actually ended up working at the company you were at prior to you leaving. And he's like, I heard a lot of people had some good things to say about you. And he's like, and then I noticed you guys had the podcast. He's like, I follow you on TikTok and I watch all the reels and stuff that you put out. And he's like, it's really cool. He's like, I just wanted to let you know. He's like, man, it's really funny. He's like, I really enjoyed. He's like, we listen to every episode. We've had a couple people that have also commented on Roman's roofing page from like roofing companies in Wisconsin, which I have no affiliation to at all. And they laugh, they tag their friends in it. They think it's really funny. So it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like, you know, one, we spend a lot of money in the production. So it's nice to know that it's actually being marketed the right way. But then two, just the fact that anytime anybody takes even 5 minutes out of their day to listen to what the hell I'm saying, that makes me feel good. Because, you know, like I'm doing it because I enjoy it. It's fun for me. I listen to my podcast. I watch myself on YouTube. Like I critique the hell out of myself. But just the fact that somebody thought that either it was interesting enough or I had the personality for them or whatever the case may be, but they took the time out of their day to sit down and listen to me. And of course that makes you feel good, man. That's what it's all about. So I really enjoyed it. As long as somebody's taking something from it, or even if they're not, just they're having fun. Like that's great, dude. That's the whole mindset.
Yeah, it makes it all worthwhile because it is a commitment. As much fun as it is, you know, we have to sit down and we schedule these things and make sure that we're there. And you know, I've shot 5 episodes this past week, and you start doing that. And, you know, I've done a couple in a row, 2 or 3 in a row. You have to bring the energy. You have to make sure that you give your best every time, because someone might be watching for the first time, and, you know, you want to give them your best foot forward and just show them, hey, this is cool. But when you do get that validation, I remember this story, and I'll tell this real quick before we start talking a little bit about you as a person. I was at ABC Supply in Laredo, Texas. This was about 2.5 years ago. I'd never been to Laredo, Texas before in my life, but I was doing a roof over there. There's a girl in our industry named Erica Chapman, and she was working for a company there. It didn't work out for her. She went back to South Carolina, and she called me up one day and said, hey, I have a customer there, but I don't want this other company to do the roof. Can you do it for me? All right. Yeah, sure. No problem. So I go down there. We order the materials online and everything. ABC Supply delivers them at 8:00 sharp. Right. And to me, I'm thinking that's kind of cool, because just little old me, I've never ordered anything from you guys before. And I'm literally getting the first run of the day. It was a Monday, I believe. So it was like, you know, there probably were some other people waiting on their stuff. And we get about halfway through the job, and I realize I need to go get a roll of ice and water or whatever I had to go get. So I type in ABC. I start driving over there. I get into the office, and the dude behind the counter was like, "Hey, man, it's Chuck from Keepin It Rio." And I'm like, "Who the hell are you?" You know? And he's like, "I've been watching your show every week. I think you guys are hilarious. It's funny how you and Eric interact with each other." And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, damn, I knew my mom was watching, and I knew a couple of my buddies were, but this was like an actual complete stranger. And that was a turning point for me. I realized at that point, okay, got to put my best foot forward. I think we talked about gas station food on the next episode and really brought some value to the world. And ever since then,
I watched that one. That was the guy who travels around, right? And he eats. Yeah, dude. That's the first podcast of yours that I watched, and then I went and watched Becca's, and then I went and watched Becca was the 200th episode, right?
Or she was 150th.
150,
yep.
Yeah.
She was 150, and the gas station guy, the full episode's not even out yet. We talked about all kinds of amazing stuff on that.
Hell yeah.
Years back, we were talking about where's the best place to get a hot dog when you're working and so on and so forth. And that's what it's all about. If we can bring that knowledge and that education and that info to the masses, and we can help them know that, Speedway has the best gas station hot dogs, then I feel like we've done our jobs as humans. So that's what the whole point of the podcast is.
Yeah. And who doesn't want to know about a good dog deal? You know what I'm saying? And I love that you brought up the Speedway dogs, because when I was out in the field with the guys and we were sales reps, we used to go in there and we would frequent that spot a lot for lunch, because when you're in roofing salesman, you don't have time to go sit down and eat all the time. So we would go in there, and there's this funny thing I always do to our guys, like whenever they're at the register, I always tell them, like, hey, check his tornado bag. Make sure he's only our tornado bag. Make sure he's only got 2 in there. Sometimes he'll steal 3, or I'll tell him he puts hot dogs in his pocket. Like, it's so funny. I love doing that stuff though. But man, yeah, that's hilarious, dude. You got to release the whole thing so we could see the rest of it.
Oh, it's coming out. Don't worry. I think it's episode 203. I just released 201 the other day. So I've got a couple of them. I'm doing them once a week. I think I'm going to try to get to do 2 a week this coming year, and really kind of step on the gas a little bit. Maybe do a live episode every week as well, or once a month do a live episode, something like that. That's just fun. There's something about not having a safety net, and like this one here, there's no safety net. It's going out exactly as we're talking, and everything's going to be exactly the way that it is as we do this organically. But a lot of fun doing those live episodes, because you can have people call in. I've had people call in from all over the country and tell weird stories, and you can take, questions from the guests or from the audience and all that. And that interaction's a lot of fun too. That's the one thing that I'm lacking right now with the format that I have, is just don't get the interactions. People will be watching this, and StreamYard says live, but it's going to be a month from now, and people are going to be asking questions, and I'll be on there trying to answer them. But it's like, you know what? Being able to answer them on the fly and on the air is cool. That's something to look forward to for Keepin It Rio in 2025. So
we want to do the same thing. I think that the live podcast is the way to go, man. You could have somebody sitting off on the side with a computer and a headset and just have them read it off to you, and then just go from there. Live is actually the way of the future for us anyway, because nobody's talking about it. And if we were doing live shopping, man, like, dude, just imagine you had the same setup, what you were doing with the podcast, with what we do for roofing. Now, it wouldn't be roofs because you couldn't do that, but if it was like gutters, something they don't need to necessarily see, because we know what the gutters look like, but you could get a quote on there, instant quote, and then have them come back on the live when they're done, and then tell them, all right, cool. Well, we're knocking $300 off that quote right now if you're signing right here. Right? What are you guys doing? Because everybody's calling us right now. You see the lines blowing up, all that stuff, like the whole card salesman, like how they used to be back in the day. Dude, roofing doesn't do that. And it would be so fun. It would be so fun.
It is fun. And I agree. I think that's the wave of the future. We're going to make that our deal. You and I have just set a new trend that's someone's going to steal it from us, but we're going to be the trendsetters on that. We're going to make it happen. And I look forward to that. And I hope one day I can be a guest on the live episode of the Roof Trollz.
You 100% will be. 100%.
We're going to have some fun. We're going to have a lot of fun. So we're an hour deep into this episode, and I've covered the 2 things that we were setting out to cover, which was the roofing company, the podcast. I didn't anticipate it being an hour, but we're having a blast right now. So the next phase of this podcast is I want to learn about Elijah, the guy. I want to know what makes you tick. I want to know what gets you up every morning, what excites you. You got a Seinfeld hat on. You got beat in the background. you got some stuff going on over here. So tell me a little bit about yourself outside of roofing, outside of podcasting. Who is Elijah as a human being?
You know, I'm still figuring that out myself. It's funny you just said that because we did some personality tests about 2 years ago, and it had this whole breakdown of your thought process and all this stuff and who you are as an individual, personality trait wise. And then last year, I got really motivated, and I was like, hey, man, I'm going to read 25 books. So when I ran out and I read 25 books, and I'm not saying that books change your life, and I'm not saying that at all, but I'm not saying that they don't either. So I read these 25 books, and then I take this personality test again while I was in Utah at Door to Door Con. Same guy who had us take them, and I had completely forgotten that we took the test 2 years prior. So my traits actually literally reversed completely to where it's like a different mindset. And basically it was, I believe that I didn't really have an end game in front of me, man. I didn't really, outside of trying to be a better father, there's not really much that I'm happy, bro. Like it just in life in general. I got a great girl. I make awesome money. I have a beautiful, healthy child, Aria, my daughter. She's my pride and joy. I got 3 awesome dogs at home that I love very much. I'm a homeowner. My business is with all my boys. I have a podcast that I invite all my friends on. I have a beautiful network that I've developed over the years. And I just don't. I used to be really angry, man. I don't have anything to be angry about anymore. So now I'm like trying to identify like who am I now, Because like I'm at a point, I guess, where I can honestly say I never thought I'd be. I never thought there would be a time where someone would be like, hey, man, how you feeling? And then I would respond to them happy. That's where I'm at now. Usually my whole life just been so pissed off, angry, just didn't really have guidance. And I think that the last couple of years I've really honed in on who I am as a man. And I've got a lot to work on. There's no doubt about that. All of us do. But now I feel like I have goals in front of me. Like I know what I want, So I'd like to answer that question by saying that I'm just a guy having fun right now, man. I don't know how else to put it. Like I just don't, I'm ready for whatever. I'm just here for a good time, and I just don't have a burden that a lot of American citizens do right now. I don't have that burden on me, so I just feel like I'm in complete control for the first time in a long time. And when you have happiness with a mindset and a goal, I mean, sky's the limit, dude. That's why I said, like, I don't even think we've even scratched the surface for any of the potential or anything now. And I'm starting to look bigger picture. I didn't anticipate being in a position that I'm in right now. And I certainly didn't anticipate where life has taken me this last year, but I've really tried to open doors up, and, I've got a speaking opportunity later this year, which is what I set forth for. All my big, huge goals I've crushed the last 2 years. So now I'm like, I gotta make new ones, like Grant Cardone says, I gotta find goals that accommodate me now. I've been setting them too small. I thought they were big and they weren't big. So now, like, what's a big goal look like, like where are those next step at? So I guess I'm just ambitious, bro. I want to learn. But more importantly, I just want to keep my headspace where it's at right now. Cause I'm this is the happiest and funnest that I've ever had in my entire life. Outside of a couple, same things everybody else does. Me and my fiance, you'll argue sometimes, or we'll butt heads with some of the owners here at the office, but that's just expected in life, bro. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think anybody else in life right now is having as much fun as I am. That's
amazing. I love that. And you know what? I totally feel it, because I've gone through the highs and lows of life as well, on top of the world one day, and then everything gets kind of pulled out from under you and you're down at the bottom and you're thinking, damn, I did all this work and I didn't get to the top where I was supposed to be. And I've learned to really not take anything for granted, because over the course of my life, I've always just kind of skated by on my talent. And my talent got me, fairly well. It got me to a pretty good spot where I was having fun. And then I wasn't having fun for a couple years. It's taken me maybe about the last year and a half or so to really just focus on that. Like you said, I mean, last year, my whole goal was I wanted to learn how to play golf, which golf tells you a lot about who you are as a character, as a human being. When I started playing golf, and this did happen just as recently as about a week ago too, but when I started, I'd notice I'd get kind of pissed off. Like I'd hit a bad shot, I'd cuss, God damn it, this isn't right. I hate this. And I started to just look at it and say, you know what? This is a game. It's a game that some people never get to play because they don't have the ability. People are missing arms. People can't go out and do this. People have cancer and they can't play 9 holes of golf. And I started kind of taking a different perspective and looking at life from a completely different mindset and just saying, you know what? I'm 46 years old, dude. Like if I live to be 92, which I don't think I'm going to, but if I live to be 92, I'm already halfway done. And I can remember stuff I did when I was 5 and 6. So you start to realize life is, it's precious. It's short. It's got a finite time limit on it. And you start kind of saying, okay, let me get a little bit better today than I was yesterday. Let me do 1%. Let me do 1%. At the end of the year, you're 365% better than you were that day the previous year. And you start setting these goals. And I've always been one of those that I say something publicly because I want to be held accountable. And a couple years ago, I went to a conference. It was run by Lee Haight down in Florida. And I took my buddies with me from the office and my business partners. And I told them, I'm going to be on stage at this event next year. And I had no idea how that's going to happen. It's kind of like me just running my mouth. But dude, I was a co-MC of that event the next year. And we do the podcast. And I say, I'm going to have XYZ people on the podcast. And my goals right now, Forrest Griffin, the former UFC champ.
Hell yeah.
And Mark Coleman, who I reached out to. Mark Coleman said he would do it. I met Forrest Griffin in person, and I actually got to introduce him on stage at Lee's event last year. So I need to reach back out to him and say, hey, dude, Keepin It Rio. But as you start to get a little bit older, you start to realize, a lot of the stuff that I was mad about was completely irrelevant. The people that I was so tied up with, and fuck him, I hate that. Now it's like, dude, I'm sorry. I feel bad that I got so offended or so upset or whatever. In the grand scheme of life, it means nothing. So that's a great mindset to have, just having some fun, enjoying, stuff that some people might think is offensive or crazy or rude or whatever, but it's who we are as people. And I think that being able to be yourself and not care what other people think or say about you is one of the most amazing feelings in life. And it's taken me a long time to get there, but I'm there. And I agree with you. This is a pretty damn good place to be in the world. And it's a good time to be here. And we're enjoying it. So
I love that manifesting too, man. I 2 years ago, I stood on stage when it was empty at Door to Door Con. It was day 2. They had cleared out everything, completely empty. I had my buddy film it. I went up there on the stage and I said, I'm just going to manifest it, bro. I'm going to be on a stage in the next 2 years speaking. So I still got a whole nother year, but I've already been invited to an event. Like I said, in April, we'll talk about that later when I can brag about it. But it's yeah, man, just putting things down and then really accomplishing them. It just gives you, gives you something to go for. And it's like I said earlier, a lot of people that look on the outside in for us, they have no idea what we really do. No one really knows what this industry is unless they're involved in it. So when you see the people that, oh, you're so lucky, oh, you're this, oh, you're that, it's like, it's weird because like the harder I work, the luckier I seem to get. I don't know. It's kind of weird how that works out, but yeah, we're blessed, bro. This, there's no doubt about it. This industry will give you everything that you give it. So.
Yeah, and sometimes it'll give you 10 times more than you give it, and that could be right, wrong, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. But just rolling with the punches. Like I say, I've had such an experience, dude. I don't have a college degree. I barely got out of high school. I have a GED. I don't tell that to too many people in the world, but the fact is, when I was 18, I moved out of my parents' home on my birthday, and about 2 weeks before graduation, I decided that I didn't care anymore. So being a rebel, I went and did my deal. I took a GED test, and this was like the one barrier, the lowest barrier of entry to get into is the roofing world. And we laugh about that all the time, but it's also the most amazing thing. And some of the friends I've made along the way, I mean, dude, I've got buddies that were, facing 100 years in prison, had multiple felony accounts, people that have gone bankrupt, lost it all, people that have had massive drug habits and turned their lives around and become amazing people, leaders and pillars in the community. And God bless the roofing industry, man. I'm thankful that we get to do something that's fun. We get to help people along the way and kind of have those stories. And yeah, life is good. So
Yeah,
I see you got this Seinfeld hat on, man. This has got me a little intrigued as well. I'm a huge Seinfeld guy. I'm a huge Curb Your Enthusiasm guy.
Yes.
I have that crude sense of humor. Anybody that rides with me in the truck or walks around at IRE with me and kind of hears what I say on the, they realize, I'm a little Larry David-esque in my mindset sometimes. So
I love Larry.
Tell me about your favorite episode of Seinfeld.
Oh, man. So, okay, dude, there's so many good ones, but my favorite is the comeback. I love when George is in there eating all the shrimp at the meeting, and the dude's like, hey, George, the ocean called. They're running out of shrimp. Everybody laughs. And then he just develops this whole thing of going back and getting back at him. And just the whole way it plays out, George is the best character, hands down. His approach to life is just nothing short of amazing. Each character brings something different to the table, but I think the comeback is my favorite episode. But the Marble Rye episode's amazing. Festivus is amazing. When he goes back to, I think the Marble Rye episode, is it the same one when Kramer goes back off strike at the bagel place and he's going back to work and you find out where he's actually had a job the whole time and then he wants to go on strike again. That's a great episode. Man, the neo-Nazi one, when they pick him up, they take him in the limo to go see the Bulls, and they think George is the head of the neo-Nazis. And then they find out it's some other guy supposed to get in the car, and then they end up looking identical. I just like how it all ties into each other. If you watch Seinfeld from the beginning to the end, and I've done that multiple times, you'll watch where the characters intertwine with each other. The old lady from the Marble Rye, she pops up again in season 6, and she recognizes Jerry on the street. And, they have that whole interaction with each other. I just think that Larry David's mind, the way it works on that show is just amazing. And then the side characters are all beautiful. George's dad, Jerry Stiller, just amazing. His scream, just phenomenal. And then I love Elaine, all her boyfriend side ones. There's so many good episodes. The doll episode's great when they're going on, what is he going on, David Letterman? And she's supposed to bring him the doll that looks like George's mom, but she's like, that one's not funny. So I brought this one. He's like, this doesn't look like anything. And then they have the fluffy shirt. I don't want to be a pirate. That's a great episode. I love all of them, bro. It's Seinfeld's just the shit.
It absolutely. And you're spot on about George, because you realize after the fact, George was 100% Larry. And when Larry continued on with the whole thing as his personal, he's Larry David. Oh my God. I could sit and watch Curb Your Enthusiasm forever. I could watch every episode over and over. To me, there's only 2 shows like that in the world. And the other one is Trailer Park Boys. And I don't know if you've ever watched Trailer Park Boys, but it's I've seen that series probably 10 different times. And it's funny because you see something new and different and funny every single time you watch it. And it's how did I miss that the first 9 times? But I'm thankful I watched it the 10th. And I was watching Larry David the other day when he had Latte Larry's and he's pissed off at Mocha Joe. And, I'm going to get you, Mocha Joe. And he's got his coffee warmers and there's no defecating in the store. And just an absolute jewel of a human being.
It might be as funny as Seinfeld. The way that it ended too was so good. That final season of Curb is so good. I really like that show a lot. But for me, the 2 are the Seinfeld and The Office. Simpsons is my favorite show ever of all time. I have a whole leg that tattooed of The Simpsons. That's my jam. But The Office is the most rewatchable show in my opinion. Curb, Seinfeld, and The Office. They're just, perfect.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. I've seen all of everyone, and I'll sit there. My Name is Earl in there. That's a highly underrated classic.
That's a classic.
And those things cannot make it on television in modern times. I was thinking Married with Children this morning as well, and it was dude, there is no way.
When's the last time you watched it? I have the complete DVD set because I'm a physical media guy. That's one of my hobbies that I have in my spare time is I'm all horror. Anything horror, I probably have. If you saw my basement, it would go nuts. I collect figures and everything, but like I'm a nerd. But physical media is my jam. So I just Blu-rays, 4Ks, DVDs, don't care. I still go to Disc Replay and stock up on DVDs. But I bought the Married with Children box set last year, and I like rewatching it, and it's so good. But my God, there would be so many lawsuits. America couldn't handle that right now. I'll tell you that right now. America could not. Even episode 1, America could not handle it. It would be canceled. It would have never made it off a pilot. No chance.
And I'm thankful that I lived in a different era when stuff like that was on every week and we could watch it and just be like, you know what? I was thinking about Married with Children this morning where he was at the library and he says, listen, Blob. And her name was Blaub. He just, and I thought, dude, there is no possible way. Or when he says, I'd say it to your face, but my car only has half a tank of gas, and it's like, dude, that is absolutely what's lacking in America right now. And I'm not trying to be political, but when we could laugh at ourselves and we could make fun of each other and have those kind of ball busting theories and things like that, man, what a great world this was at that time. And I'm thankful to have someone that can appreciate that as well. So
I remember watching it, dude. My mom let us watch that when we were younger, So I was raised by my mom. My dad passed when I was younger, but there was like no filter with my mom. So we would watch like Steven Seagal movies. I was watching Lionheart that's why I'm so addicted to 80s and 90s action now. And the sitcoms from back then, because I was allowed to watch them. You brought up Howard Stern earlier. Are you from the Midwest originally? Like, where are you from?
Columbus, Ohio, baby. Go Bucks.
So Mancow then.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mancow was also on late at night. Him and Turd and Freak, they had their own podcast too. Before it was a podcast, before we knew what a podcast was. But yeah, so I used to watch Howard Stern on E2, and I would watch Mancow, and that's kind of like where I also only listen to ESPN Radio 1000. That's like the only thing I ever hear in my car. So I'm constantly like, that's my whole mindset. But yeah, I love, dude, when Howard Stern, did you watch Private Parts?
100 times.
So good. That movie's so good. Yeah, I love Howard Stern, bro. He's an innovator, and he was the shit. Just in general, he was the shit. But yeah, he's commercial now, but that tends to happen after a while.
It does. I mean, you're 70 years old, and I was joking with this guy the other day. I said, I'll never get to that level of Howard Stern of where I have strippers in my studio and I'm throwing baloney at him and stuff like that. But that was some of the greatest comedy ever. I literally, every night, I go to sleep listening to old Howard Stern. The other night, it was Beetlejuice and the Iron Sheik I was listening to, and I listened to Eric the Midget, and I listened to Jeff the Drunk, and they're fighting with each other and all this. And it's like, dude, that was some of the most amazing. Artie, when he's fighting with Crazy Alice, and he's just fighting back and forth with them. And it's like, dude, that's another thing. You couldn't really probably get by with it today, but 10, 15 years ago, man.
My fiance saw the flag before I FaceTimed her right before I hopped on here. And she's like, you're not going to let that stupid flag be in the back, are you? I'm like, what? First off, it's not a stupid flag. I was like, yes, I'm going to let it. I'm like, it's me. And we get on here and right away you compliment it. And I wanted to text her, as soon as I get off here, I'm going to call her and be like, I told you people would like it. But everybody who comes in here, even when they come in for an interview and stuff, like everybody, it's always the same reaction. Like, it's awesome. So one guy, real funny, one guy, I didn't hire him. But it was a kid that came in here. It was like 45 minutes into the interview, man. Like, we've been chit chatting. He had a troubling thing in his past. So we had to kind of like dial in on what that was. But about 45 minutes into it, he goes, "Holy shit!" And I said, "Are you good?" And he goes, "Bro," he's like, "For some reason, I don't know why." He's like, "I thought that was Floyd Mayweather. Like, it was like a champion type thing." And he's like, "I just realized that's Beetlejuice." And I said, "Yeah, bro." And he goes, "Dude." He's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I did not realize that. Like, it was really, his reaction was really funny, dude. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, Beetlejuice is the shit, man. If you don't like Beetlejuice, like, you're nuts. That guy's so funny. Spell red.
There's something wrong with you if you don't like beat. And I think if I walked into a job interview and I saw that flag, instantly I'd be like, dude, please, can I work here? Let me just show you that this is the place where I can perform. And you've obviously got a culture that's unlike any other. And I can also imagine there probably, maybe have been some people that have walked in that said, "Oh my gosh, like this is too much for me, and I'm not going to be able to do it."
So my role in the hiring, so like I do the recruiting and I run the Indeed page and all that stuff. But my role when I get them in here, And I tell them too, hey, you're going to love what I'm going to tell you because I'm here just to gauge to see if you'll fit my culture. I believe in culture over profits here. So when I sit them down, I'm like, hey, man, I just want to make sure I can work with you for 8 hours and that I'm not going to throw you into a den of wolves because like my guys are brutal. They like to have fun. They're outspoken. They'll help you, but you got to be able to fit into their mold. And I like it like that because it's, it's healthy competition and you want to have people thriving and coming to work happy. So like that's all I do in the first interview. I just want to make sure you're a fit. If you are a fit, you'll go on to your second interview and then they'll bore you with all the day-to-day operations, what your pay is and all that stuff. I don't want to do that with you. When I get you in here, I want to shoot the shit with you and find out who you are, and then, so like naturally when people leave that interview, I get a lot of text messages, which is really cool too. And they're like, hey man, I'm bought in. I want to be part of that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, I know you do, but I got a grading system and, we write it down and we go from there. But like selling somebody to work here, yeah, you hit it right on the head. It sells itself. Plus,
that's the most fun part.
It's important to be yourself, man. It's important. As I tell my guys, when you're doing these videos online or I'm doing a podcast or whatever, I want my customer to see me and be like, that's the same guy who was at my door. That's the same guy that was there when he got $100,000 check. That's the same guy that was at my house when my insurance company denied me. That's the same guy. I want him in any aspect of the process. I want them to know that like Elijah is truly Elijah or Kevin or Zion or any of my guys, David, that's who they are. And once you have that dialed in, then sky's the limit, man.
Yeah, you're unbeatable at that point because you're yourself, and win or lose, I'm going to be the same guy and I'm going to have the same smile. And we're going to laugh about something before this is all said and done. And that's how I teach my sales guys. It's like, you know what? I have been through all the sales trainings. I go around the country and I get to train sales to roofing companies. But you can't just go in and say, hey, I'm here to do your roof. We're going to do that. You got to be yourself. And my thing is, if you can make someone laugh or cry, they're yours. And you got to do something really stupid to lose them at that point. So it's all about emotion. And I think you and I are cut from the very same cloth. And we're already almost an hour and a half into our podcast. So we're going to start winding it down so we can do another one somewhere down the road. But before we go, I got 2 more questions for you. Number 1, what would you be doing on a regular day off when you don't have to think about roofing? You don't have to think about podcasting. What does a day away from the office look like for you?
So it's actually pretty simple. So it's one of 2 things. One, and more than likely it would be that one, and then it'll fade into the other one. So whatever my daughter wants to do. So does she want to go to the arcade? Does she want to go see a movie? I probably go to the movies, I would say, honestly, like 4 or 5 times a month. We go there a lot. That's my movie buddy is what I call her. Maybe frozen yogurt. She might want to go to Barnes and Noble, shopping. Maybe she just wants to go hit the mall, go to Build-A-Bear. I don't see her too often during the week for as much time as I want to spend with her. I got obligations to fulfill. We're blessed enough to be in a certain lifestyle that we live that requires me to work a lot more to maintain that lifestyle. So she knows that. So any time that I get it for myself is spent with her as much as possible. And her mom needs a break. Amanda's home all day. So if I can alleviate that and take her away, just spend time with her. That's what we do. Or they'll come with us. So that's usually what I'm doing on my day off. If it's Sunday, and you already know where I'm at. So I got downstairs, I got 3 TVs set up. So I'll run Red Zone, CBS, and Fox. I'm all about NFL. NFL's life. And then at nighttime is my time. So about 10 o'clock at night, maybe 9:30, my daughter goes off to bed. My fiance goes to bed. And then I resort down to the basement where you'll find me either watching a movie, watching a TV show, or playing a video game. I do still play video games. You got to have some you time in it. I'll read every once in a while. I'll read it at night. I try to read in the morning though, but I'll read at night every once in a while. But usually what I'll do is I'll set up a podcast on my TV on the right because they're right next to each other. And then I'll play a video game on the other side. So that way I'm like absorbing or watching my latest episode. And then I'm playing video games. So I just try to find some time to get in with the guys I work with. I still play there, but we don't talk about work. We'll hop on either Helldivers on PlayStation 5 or we'll play Call of Duty on the Xbox, but I still game.
I love it. I had to get rid of my iRacing simulator because I was getting a little too involved. But yeah, I think the sooner we grow up, the worse it is. And I don't intend to ever grow out of my big kid phase. And I love to hear this stuff because it makes me feel like I'm doing something right. And I can't say enough, my friend, how much I've enjoyed our conversation. We've been talking for an hour and 25, and we've known each other for about an hour and a half now. So this is pretty awesome. I feel like we've uncovered a lot. There's plenty of opportunity for future episodes. I definitely am going to take you up on the Roof Trollz at any time that I'm invited on. I will absolutely be there for that.
Well, are you coming out here?
Rio? What's that?
Are you coming out here for anything? Like, do you have any events out in Chicago or Indiana area?
No, but I do have a business partner that's in Ohio, and I grew up there. So at some point in my life, I'll come back. I hadn't been to Ohio since my mom passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Just because I don't have any reason to go anymore. But I'm sure at some point in my life, I'll go back up there, and I'm going to make it a point to swing through Indy and just, we'll hang out. We'll do something fun.
Well, I'm
going to see you guys at IRE.
You are going to see me there. I'm like 4 hours north of Indianapolis, but yeah, dude, we'll take you out to dinner. Come see the office, and we'll go to the casino down over here. We'll have some steak dinner, throw some craps around.
There you go, my friend. So in closing, I always like to ask the final thing. You've got the podcast, you're blowing it up. You're doing great with the roofing. I believe your personality is something that many more people need to be exposed to. So anybody that's watching this episode that says, man, Chuck's pretty cool, but this Elijah dude, man, he's a total badass. I want to learn more about him. I want to follow him on social media. I want to maybe come work with him or be on his podcast. What are the best ways for people to access you and your programs and all of the cool things that you've got going on?
Well, you could, anybody can email my email is elijah@romansroofing.net. But the best ways are Facebook and Instagram. I'm on both of them. Elijah Muhm for my Facebook, and then let me look at what my Instagram title is. I think it's I want to say it's Eli the Sly Guy. Forgive me for not knowing. Yeah, so Eli the Sly Guy 1986, but you could just type in Elijah Muhm and it'll pop up. Those are the best two ways. Shoot me a message. I live on both of those. So we'll be able to get in contact that way. Or you could always go on the Roof Trollz Facebook page as well. Not too hard to get a hold of these days.
I'm currently on it as we speak. So I love it. And like I said, this has been an absolute blast. I love when I get to meet people that have a similar personality and energy. I don't think either one of us has let off the gas since we hit the record button. And that's the way it should be with podcasting. So for everybody that watches Keepin It Rio every week, I thank you guys for being loyal and supportive. I always encourage people to like and subscribe and tell all your friends. I do have something that's a new feature for today's episode. I don't know if it's going to work, but before we do go, I want to give a thanks to my sponsors, Roofer. That's ROOFR.com. Roofer is the absolute greatest program on the face of the earth. Love those guys. Looking forward to doing a lot more things with them in the future. And before I sign off, I always have the most corny tagline in the history of podcasting, which is, ladies and gentlemen, keep on keeping it real. We'll see you guys next Thursday. Thank you for staying around, and I love you guys. Talk to you later. Let's see what happens here with the outro. Let's see if it actually works. You ready?
We're Roofer. We know that managing a roofing business can be chaotic. So we created a single platform with all the tools you need to easily run your roofing business.
With Roofer, you can stop switching between multiple different softwares and experience streamlined operations from lead to payment in hours instead of days. That way, you get more time back in your day for the things that matter most. Grow your business faster with Roofer. Visit roofr.com to get started for free today.